the Korean American story is a great American story. Do you think there's a place for my students who maybe go through this Korean American Studies course to be a part of a workshop like that, where they can share what they learned at this very professional Colonel Young Kim sponsored event?
Oh, definitely.
I'm here at Myeongdong Kalguksu with Dr. Ed Chang, renowned Korean American historian, perhaps one of the fathers of Korean American history, I would say. And today we're here in this place, and he has some books that he's written. I was wondering, Dr. Chang, if you could share a little bit about the books you've written.
Yeah, sure. Hello, everyone. This is the Korean Americans Concise History. As you can see, it's very thin, a little more than 100 pages long, and it pretty much gives you Korean American History 101. Anyone can easily access this book, and it provides Korean American history from early 20th century to now, 21st century. So this is a quite handy book for everyone to read. I strongly recommend everyone to read it.
So students, this is the book that we're going to be using for the course. It's divided into 7 different chapters, and we're going to have a chance to look through each one because it's going to begin with the first Korean American community and end with modern day Korean Americans.
Yeah, this is a Pachapa camp, the first Koreatown in the United States. And this Pachapa camp was unknown until I accidentally discovered that Pachapa camp existed from 1904 to 1918 in the city of Riverside. And the organizer was Dosan An Chang-ho, and he's like a Thomas Jefferson of Korea, the United States. So he's truly leader of a Korean independence movement, and it all began, of all place, Riverside, California. So he provides the historical documentation of how and why he came to the United States and how he was able to organize independence movement.
We think about democracy in Korea. During the Joseon Dynasty, it was not a democracy. But yet, where did the democracy come from?
Right, it was also called as the Dosan's Republic. And I did not know why it was called Dosan's Republic. But as I dug up more materials, it was a democratic ideal he practiced at the Pachapa camp.
And this is why it's so important to know these stories, because we didn't know them before. And scholars like Dr. Ed Chang has unearthed artifacts in the historical records, which is why we're able to learn about these topics today.
And this is another book I co-authored. It's called Korean American Pioneer Aviators. Did you know Korean Air Force began here in California in 1920? So this is another hidden jewel that I uncovered, that Korean Americans, Korean immigrants in California wanted to engage in direct conflict with Japan, Japanese Empire, and they saw the power of Air Force. So they established the Korean Aviation School here in California, and they trained pilots so they can fight against Japan.
Amazing story of the first Korean Americans in the United States, helping to set forth this aviation school, which would become the first Air Force of the Republic of Korea one day.
And this is one of the more recent publications. It just published this year in 2023 by UCLA Asian American Studies Center, commemorating 30th anniversary of Sa-i-gu, meaning LA riots, 30th anniversary. And many different journalists and community activists contributed articles and essays. And I also wrote a lead essay, framing essay, sort of, and what it means to be Korean American during the context of Sa-i-gu LA riots. So this is a very important documentation of Korean American history as well.
That's right. That Sa-i-gu is Korean for 429. 30 years ago, April the 29th, the LA civil unrest. Dr. Ed Chang, I believe that during that season, you were actually a spokesperson for the Korean American community during those difficult days to journalists. Is that so?
Oh, I was one of them. Angela will, of course, gain national fame, but I was mainly doing interviews with local, national, and international media trying to give a voice to Korean American community, as Korean America was unknown, hidden, and we had no representation at all. So I tried to give point of view of Korean, what it means to be Korean American merchants who went through LA civil unrest of 1992.
So Sa-igu, who was the voice during that season? Dr. Ed Chang referred to Angela Oh, who we'll be learning about. We'll definitely be learning about Sa-igu. Many of you expressed interest on this topic, but also Dr. Ed Chang, thank you for being a voice during that difficult season and continuing to be a great voice.
Thank you.
Hello, this is Dr. Jeff Kim. I'm here with Dr. Edward Chang, one of the founders of Korean American history, the first ethnic studies PhD candidate, and a scholar in the field of Korean American studies. Welcome to the Ed Family YouTube channel. And I was wondering, Dr. Ed Chang, if you could just share a little bit about your story of how you became a professor, how you became a scholar of Korean American ethnic studies.
Well, I came to the United States in 1974 with my parents, and at the time I did not know how to speak English language at all. And my intent was to go to high school. I was 18 years old, and high school for a year, learn a bit of English language and go to community college and transfer. But it turns out my plan got completely derailed when Hollywood High School principal rejected my admission because I was 18 years old. I was considered adult, as I couldn't sit with minors. So my plan had to change right away. So I decided to enlist in the U.S. Army to learn English language. While in the U.S. Army, I kind of experienced racial tension. And I did not know at the time. Later on, I found out that U.S. military was desegregated around that time. So tension was very high between black soldiers and white soldiers. And I noticed that if you have a white officer, the black enlistment was getting hard time, and the other way around. So I really didn't understand what it meant at all. But after I was honorably discharged and went to community school, and fortunately I was able to transfer to UC Berkeley as a sociology major. And I was learning all these philosophers, Western philosophers, and it really didn't make any sense to me. But I discovered Asian American studies at Cal Berkeley. So I took as many Asian American studies classes at Cal, barely minimum sociology classes. And I took my first Korean American studies class, Asian American studies class. We had renowned scholars like Elaine Kim, Ron Takaki, and Michael Omi, many other well-known scholars. So it really made a lot of sense to me because what they were teaching is about my own experience as well as my family, community experiences. So I decided to pursue, and instead of at the time we had more than close to 200 Korean American students at Cal. They're all majoring in engineering and math. I was pretty much only sociology major. We had two other sociology major, but their intent was to go to seminary school to become a pastor. So I was the only sociology major at the time. I decided to pursue my passion. I worry about making a living. I'm sure I shouldn't have to worry about it in the richest country in the nation. So I decided to apply master's program at UCLA in Asian American Studies. And after I was completing my master's degree, UC Berkeley announced nation's first PhD program in ethnic studies. So wow, I was blown away. And so I decided to apply. And I didn't apply anywhere else. But fortunately, I was accepted. So I became one of the first 8 cohorts in pursuing PhD in ethnic studies. So that's how it began.
So you had that background and foundation in ethnic studies, and then from there, how did you begin the Young-Ok Kim Center or begin your career?
I started to look into Korean black conflict in Los Angeles, and I knew it could blow up because understanding civil rights movement, power movement, the slavery, racial tension. So I knew this wasn't something that minor. I knew it could have a potentially explosive topic. So
you selected this topic before Saigu,
oh yeah,
the 1993 civil unrest. You
Yeah.
were thinking this could be
around 1987.
1987.
So I came down to Los Angeles to do research in '88, and I was doing a lot of field research in Compton, South LA, swap meets, doing a lot of interviews with merchants but Korean American merchants, Korean American community didn't want to reveal this. They wanted to just, it's not a problem. They all say it's not a problem, but it was a problem. There's a lot of issues, cultural misunderstanding, language barrier, racial attitudes. It's a complicated matter. But I finished my doctoral dissertation in 1990. And right before I finished, Cal Poly Pomona announced a 1-year position in ethnic studies. I applied and I got the job. And the first quarter, after first quarter was done, they offered me the tenure track position.
Wow.
So I accepted. But first year I was teaching there. UC Riverside asked me to teach first Asian American Studies class. So I went there. I got a permission from Cal Poly, of course, and I taught first Asian American Studies class at UCR. And after that, they offered me the position, tenure track position.
So the very first Asian American Studies class at UCR was a class that you taught.
Yes, I believe it was in 1991, somewhere around either 1990 or 1991. And so, but I didn't want to leave right away because at the time, ethnic studies positions at university was very scarce. The administration could just take it away just like that. So I wanted to hire someone before I left Cal Poly. So I, hired another person. It's Ed Park.
Ed Park, I know Ed Park.
Ed Park.
Yes, another scholar.
Yeah, and then I moved to UCR, but he began his academic career at Cal Poly. That's how it began.
Wonderful. And then since then, your research has become really well known because in 1993 there was the LA civil unrest.
92.
How did the research allow you to support the Korean American community and the American community?
Yeah, at the time, LA civil unrest, Saigu, erupted. I believe I was the only scholar who has done any kind of academic research on Korean African American relations. So naturally, the media, they all wanted to do interview, and their question was all same. They want to get Korean American merchant perspective, but none of them were willing to speak to the media because they were afraid of miscommunicating because they didn't feel comfortable doing interviews in English language. So I had to be kind of giving a voice to Korean American merchants who lost everything. So I basically said three things. Because of Saigu, Korean American community suffered triple oppression. Number one, economic loss. Of the total damage was $1 billion, but Korean American community suffered 40%, almost $400 million. Number two, many suffered from mental illness, post-traumatic stress syndrome, PTSS. They came to America dreaming American dream, right? And they could never imagine this kind of a lawlessness would happen in America, of all places, right? And some of them couldn't fully recover from this. And third, mainstream media basically was taking Korean American community and they began to blame them. And we were gun-toting vigilantes.
The rooftop Koreans.
Rooftop Koreans. Without contextualizing why they had to go up to the rooftop and trying to defend their story. It was totally decontextualized. They only show Korean immigrant merchants with guns and rifles. That's it. But so we became more assailant instead of being a victim, right?
Sure.
So the Korean American community was devastated. But it was also a wake-up call. It was a turning point. It was a watershed event for Korean American community. Until 1992, majority of Korean immigrants, they view themselves as a Korean. But now they began to realize we are not just Korean, we are Korean American. And Korean American identity was born or reborn on April 29, 1992. So it was a completely new discourse for Korean American community. And since then, my research, I've written tons of articles and books, both in English and Korean. In 1993, I published in Korean language titled Who African Americans Are. I wanted to educate Korean immigrants about plight of African American community. There was total misunderstanding, and they didn't know anything about slavery, racism, riots. Separate by equal doctrine.
Sure.
None of them they knew. So I wanted to, and the many Korean immigrants who read the book, they were totally blown away. I received a letter, a 5-page letter. She said, I used to turn off TV whenever African American person comes on, but now I completely understand where they're coming from.
It's like you wrote their story and it created a connectedness with the Korean American, maybe perhaps even Korean story, and the Korean oppression that Koreans experienced as well. Maybe
Exactly.
created a connectedness.
Exactly, oppression. Koreans experience colonialism, and also there's many similar ethos, such as Chang and blues music and hip hop. There's a Korean ethos. That's I don't know, but maybe that's the reason why Koreans are so good at hip hop.
K-pop now.
Yeah, K-pop.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
there is a mutual understanding of what it means to be oppressed population. And so I think, anyway, I try to educate Korean immigrants. At the same time, I wrote an op-ed for the LA Times, interview with NPR, major TV, radio stations about the Korean American community, trying to provide the context where they're coming from. So I try to bridge the gap between the two communities as well as a larger audience.
Seems like there was a lot of misunderstanding of both the Black community as well as the Korean and the Korean American community. And you were a person who helped bring more clarity And I feel like that would take a lot of courage to share your opinions, your thoughts, to be a voice in those media spaces. What allowed you to have that kind of resilience yourself to be a voice for the community?
At the time, I did not have any choice. The media, the interview requests were all coming to me at first. And later on, the Nightline, because of the Nightline, Angela O kind of assumed a lot of national responsibility. But locally, I was doing a lot of interviews, but I had to give a voice to voiceless Korean American merchants. No one cared. Korean America was invisible, and no one cared about Korean American community at all. In the City Hall, Sacramento, Washington D.C., no politician cared about Korean American community. That's the reason why Korean Americans began to pursue political activism, and they realized unless you participate in the political process, you are not visible. There is no accountability, representation. So that's the reason why for the past 30 years, Korean American community tried to gain visibility and trying to sit on the same table, right? Unless they invite you, you are not sitting the same table. So and now we have full congressmen and women, and a lot of city council, association, school board members. So we are gaining, but still we have a long way to go.
So tell us about the Colonel Young-O Kim Center at UCR now. It's been a number of years, decades since you first taught that first Asian American Studies class. Many years have passed, researched books. Where is it now, and where are we headed with Korean American Studies?
Yeah, I'm very proud to have established the nation's first Korean American Studies Center, named after Korean American person Young-O Kim. And I established in 2010, and at the opening ceremony, Dr. Sammy Lee also attended the opening ceremony. But Colonel Young-O Kim, of course, passed away in 2005. Unless you have a research center at the major university, you are not going to be able to do research. That was the conclusion I made. So we were able to convince Overseas Korean Foundation, and they donated $2.5 million to start a center. And so it was opened in 2010. This is our 13th year. And I'm also very happy and proud that we were able to convene first Korean American Studies Conference last year. Right?
That's right. I believe I was there.
Yeah.
Yes.
And this year we had the second annual conference. And next year it's going to be at UC Riverside, third annual conference, and December 4th, I believe. And so I encourage everyone to participate and join conference. That means we now have a critical mass in Korean American Studies, enable us to have a conference. Without critical mass, you cannot have a conference, right? So we used to be kind of a footnote within Asian American Studies Conference. It's totally mainly dominated by Japanese and Chinese and Filipino American Studies. But now you see a lot of young Korean American scholars attending Asian American Studies Conference. But also wanted to give some special emphasis in the context where the state of California passed law that requiring all high school students to take ethnic studies class. So we wanted to take advantage of Korean American ethnic studies courses. So that's the main emphasis of a Young-O Kim Center now. But proudly we published many publication books. So that's Korean American concise history, Pachapa Kim, aviation school, the Young-O Kim story. So I'm very proud that despite small staff, we were able to publish many, almost 10 books.
No doubt creating a foundation for Korean American Studies. And as you think about actually the Korean American the ethnic study standards and the Korean American ethnic. I think was it also Young Kim that helped advocate to include Korean Americans within the ethnic studies curriculum?
Yes, definitely. I mean, our center from the beginning were involved in how to get Korean American lesson plan into California module, right? School module. So from the beginning, we were involved, and we were able to push through. I authored, I think, 3 lesson plans. One of the main one is inter-ethnic relations, which talks about Korean African American relations in the context of Saigu. So yes, Young Kim Center was very much involved from the beginning. We'll continue to push for many more.
And that was so helpful because when launching the first Korean American Ethnic Studies high school class, it was off these standards that we were able to create the course. I wouldn't have known who to talk about had those not been in place. So I'm appreciative of the Young Kim Center for determining what kinds of items might be in a course like that as guidelines. So I was very appreciative of that.
Thank you. We need a lot more Dr. Jeff Kim to teach Korean American Studies classes.
What advice would you give to students who are in this Korean American Ethnic Studies class as they're taking this class, and maybe by the end of this class they'll be in the top 1% of this country who know about Korean American history? What would you challenge them as they kind of move forward beyond high school?
I'm a strong believer of knowing, learning, understanding history. History is the foundation of who you are. Without historical knowledge, you pretty much don't know who you are. That's what Dr. Carter Woodson, who founded African American History Week, he defined African American history as knowledge, identity, and power. And I completely agree with that. Korean American history is knowledge, Korean American identity, Korean American community consciousness. So history is the first step toward knowing who you are. Korean American identity is built and founded by Korean American history. So history is the foundation of Korean American identity. Once you develop a strong sense of proud of who you are, I think you begin to develop sense of commitment, community consciousness, and what to do. Sure. You will know what to do.
You will know what to do.
For the betterment. Colonel Young Kim said during the battle, many of his men died in his arm. He said, if I survive this war, I will devote my life for the betterment of the community I belong to. And he kept that promise until he passed away. I think, he also said, I am 100% American, 100% Korean. Beautiful idea. Why do you have to split your identity half and half? You cannot half and half. You can do both for the betterment of the community here in America, as well as motherland Korea.
Sure.
But if you are non-Korean, I think we are living under the hatred. A nation is totally divided, and anti-Asian hate. It didn't come out of blue. We have unfortunately long history of anti-Asian hate in California, of all places. And so we can learn the lesson and where it came about, and how do you contribute to solving problem. Instead of creating problem, you need to participate in solving issues and problems of our society. So I think you can do a lot. In the past 60s and the 70s, engagement meant protest in the streets. Today, you can do a lot of different ways. Online, creating your own YouTube channel, movement through online, virtual, many different ways. So I think you can spread the word that the Korean American community made a huge contribution to American society.
the Korean American story is a great American story. That's right.
영어 Kim is not Korean American story. It's an American story.
That's right.
Yeah.
And when we know his story, whether we're Korean American or not, it's an inspiration to all Americans.
Yes, Dr. Samuel Lee. He represented not just the Asian American community, he represented the United States of America in Olympic diving, won 2 gold medals.
And so as we learn these stories of resilience, it helps us answer that question, who am I? And then you're sharing, as we understand that question, who am I, it also helps us with our next step, where are we going?
Exactly. I think another important thing I would like to emphasize is to talk to your parents. Their story is American story. Why did they come? What did they go through? And it'll open up communication with your parents.
Yes.
And help understand your parents better, and by the same token, your parents will understand you better.
I have found that many students have never asked their parents their Korean American story.
Exactly.
And so when we make it an assignment, I think the children are more likely to ask the parents, and the parents are also more likely to tell the children, and then both benefit from this experience.
Yes, definitely.
And then also, I know you have a vision. We have this first Korean American ethnic studies in high school. It's a great achievement, but that is not where we want to end. We're wanting to see more Korean American stories because this is a great American story to benefit all Americans. What is kind of your vision for future teacher educators that incorporate Korean American studies or create new Korean American studies courses? What is your thought on this?
Yeah, I mean, California is of course a leading state, but other states following footsteps of California, such as Illinois and Connecticut and several other states, have passed a similar resolution. So Asian American Studies is becoming part of the curriculum in K-12 education. The problem is we do not have that many teachers who can teach Korean American, Asian American history and community. So we need to educate our teachers about Asian American, Korean American history and community and culture. So I'm hoping to establish some kind of a webinar or summer institute to help educate teachers, our K-12 teachers.
And I think teachers are wanting this, but they just don't know where to go. So you're saying during the summer, there might be some type of webinar that they can go to and then learn some lessons or learn some approaches that could benefit, at least incorporating 1 lesson, 2 lessons, maybe even an entire course.
Exactly. So they're offering the course. Unless you feel, I mean, the same thing, unless I feel comfortable, I'm not offering particular course, right? I feel very comfortable teaching Korean American Studies class, so I offer that class, right? I feel completely comfortable offering contemporary Asian American community course, but I'm not comfortable teaching Japanese American history, right? For example, because I don't know. So you have to know. You have to have some basic understanding of the curriculum that you're supposed to teach, right? So that's our goal, to help teachers learn about Korean American, Asian American ethnic studies, history and culture.
Do you think there's a place for my students who maybe go through this Korean American Studies course to be a part of a workshop like that, where they can share what they learned at this very professional Colonel Young Kim sponsored event?
Oh, definitely. I mean, they're, in a way, they are guinea pigs, right? But what they went through is truly not only a role model, but inspirational to many other students, right? So their story would be highly beneficial not only to students, but also teachers, because teachers will learn what they went through and what they appreciated the most, right? What needs to be improved. We'll know that from the voice of students who took that course.
Well, Dr. Ed Chang, you've been definitely a first in so many areas. The first person to receive a PhD in ethnic studies, the first to open the first Korean American Study Center at a major university at UCR, the Colonel Young Kim Center, the first to write many different books on Korean American studies that's going to help many of these courses in the future, the first to create the Korean American Studies Conference, the first to help create the Korean American Ethnic Studies curriculum, and perhaps among the first to support educators with Korean American Studies as well. You are definitely a pioneer, and you definitely have a Korean American story of resilience. We appreciate you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Kind word.